Another object sent down beams of light into the weapons storage area. The whole time we had difficulty communicating with the base, as all three radio frequencies that we were using kept breaking up. I have no idea what we saw that night, but I do know with great certainty it was under intelligent control.
Five-star Admiral Lord Hill Norton had been pressuring Parliament to provide clear answers on this case. I wanted to know if he believed a UFO actually landed at a U.S. airbase in England.
That is one explanation, that it actually happened, as Colonel Holt reported. The other explanation is that it didn't. And in that case, one is bound to assume that Colonel Holt and all his men were hallucinating.
The British Ministry of Defence's position is that nothing of any defense interest took place. This position was strongly criticized by the Admiral.
That the colonel of an American Air Force base in Suffolk and his merry men are hallucinating when there are nuclear-armed aircraft on the base must be of defense interest. If indeed what he says took place did take place, and why on earth should he make it up, then surely the entry of a vehicle from outer space, certainly not man-made, to a defense base in this country also cannot fail to be of defense interest.
Outside the Parliament building, I met with Nick Pope. He investigated UFOs officially for the British government.
I reopened the case and conducted a sort of cold case review of the original investigation, and I was shocked to find a series of basic errors had been committed, exactly the same sorts of errors that often fatally undermine a police investigation.
Nick Pope shared with me some startling evidence from the Ministry of Defence's files.
This is one of the most important documents to have emerged from the MOD's case files. It's from an assistant director in DI 52. This is their assessment of the radiation readings that Colonel Holt and his team took at the landing site.
What we have here is a plaster cast of one of the three indentations the object that Jim and the other two gentlemen approached. It's approximately 8 to 10 inches across and about 3 inches deep at its maximum point. This is cast number 2. He made an impression of all three of the indentations and they were all identical.
Now, here's the key bit. These levels seem significantly higher than the average background. And in fact, and I double-checked this with some other government scientists, it's about 8 times normal. So this is absolute proof positive from the MOD's own documentation that something extraordinary happened.
Back in America, I arranged a meeting between Colonel Holt and Sergeant Nevels, one of the men who was with him that night.
Well, I don't believe it.
Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
It's been a long time.
These men shared an extraordinary experience, one that puzzles them to this day.
Still wobble a little bit, but I make it.
I was glad to have brought them together after 28 years.
If you've been there and done that, it's a whole lot different than the skeptics that we sometimes run around with, and they can't believe us. And
a lot of the other people that were involved, especially Peniston and Burroughs and all, have had all kinds of complications and career problems.
I did too.
Peniston retired as a tech sergeant and probably should have made chief.
There's no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead.
Step by step, Colonel Holt and Sergeant Nevels went over what happened that night.
Yes, it's brighter than it has been. Yellow, it's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way.
What was going on right there?
It was approaching us.
Yep. No way of calculating how fast it was going. It was just gone.
The turns were 90-degree turns. They were just abrupt.
Right, and there's no way that anything we had in technology then, and I don't believe the technology we have today, would allow anything that we saw to make the turns the way they turned.
We met with General Gordon Williams, the wing commander of the entire base. He would neither confirm nor deny the incident. He did, however, tell us how he felt about a leaked memo written by Deputy Base Commander Colonel Charles Halt.
That went under the door and I didn't see it. Now, did he have a motivation in doing that? Did he think that if he brought it into me, I would have stepped on it? I certainly would have looked at it very carefully because it had some things in there that I don't think we were prepared to defend. Once that cat was out of the bag, you know, I couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and it lived its own life.
I just find this very interesting that the U.S. Air Force or government generally says that they don't investigate UFOs since the termination of Blue Book, and yet you're convinced that there was an investigation that took place. So who gave the orders to do that?
It certainly didn't come from anybody that was normally on the base other than the OSI.
I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my daughter. I had a top secret clearance, and when I was told to shut up, I shut up.
去る11月17日、日航貨物機がアンカレッジで UFO を目撃した。そしてその事実が1ヶ月後、共同通信により新聞各紙に発表された。
What I'm about to tell you is about an event that never happened.
For an event that never happened, FAA official John Callahan certainly has a lot of evidence.
They brought the voice tapes.
He kept audio recordings between the cockpit and the tower as the incident unfolded. He has 30 minutes of taped radar that confirms the UFO, a chart that documents all the objects in the 747's flight path, and the official FAA report.
Event that never happened.
According to Callahan, all of this was presented to the CIA in a private meeting.
When the pilot first reported the UFO, he described it as a huge ball with lights running around it. He said it was about 4 times bigger than the 747 he was riding. And remember, the 747 has an elevator. And he's looking out the window and he sees something that's 4 times the size of his aircraft.
What you're about to see and hear are excerpts from the actual radar and cockpit conversations as the incident unfolded.
Hit on the radar, approximately 5 miles in trail, your 6 o'clock position. Do you concur? Commander 1628, sir, if you're able to identify the type of aircraft, if you can tell whether it's military or civilian. Okay. It is what? It is, okay, we've lost contact with it now.
2030. We're almost on time. I think we're within 20 seconds or so.
So one time he says it's over here at 12 o'clock and 8 miles, and when the antenna goes by, we see a target there. 10 seconds later, it is now behind him, 6, 7 miles behind him. So it's going from 8 miles out here to 6 or 7 miles back here, really in only 5 or 6 seconds. When I went back to headquarters, I gave Admiral England a quick briefing and showed him the video. He set up a briefing with the President Reagan scientific staff. He told me my function was to hand this operation off to those people. And those people ended up being the CIA, the President's group, a bunch of grunts that came to the meeting. The CIA said to all the people there, this event never happened. We were never here. And you're all sworn to secrecy. We are confiscating all this data. And they did. They took everything that was in the room. In those days, when you printed out something from the computer...
Fortunately, he kept copies of everything back in his office.
That's the end of my speech. Who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes or the government?